The Twins barely finished above 500 in 2024 and in fourth place. In order to compete for the postseason in 2025, Derek Falvey is going to have to get creative with a capital create. Find out how after we all get Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to destination for top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. Personally, it's my favorite show of the Locked On Podcast Network, which, by the way, brings you your team every day. I'm co-host Dave Brown, a professional ball writer since 1998, a BBWAA member since 2012, and a Baseball Hall of Fame voter since this year. Please follow me on Twitter at AnswerDaveBrown if you like. Across from me in cyberspace is Brandon Warren, a Twins watcher for 30 years who not long ago covered the team on a daily basis professionally. He asks that you elevate the discourse with him on Twitter at Brandon_Warren. Here's what's coming up on this podcast. We are talking about 5 players. There's 5. The Twins are most likely to trade this offseason. They might not trade any. I don't know. But if there are 5 who are going to go, I think these are the 5. I don't know if Brandon, you'll agree or not, but we'll see. The Twins are trying, after all, to improve on 82 wins and 4th place in the AL Central and are said to be keeping the same payroll as they had in 2024. So I don't know how that's going to work. Brandon, can you tell us how the show is going to work? Who's bringing us this show?
Well, good afternoon, sports fans. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started or check out that FanDuel app.
So Dan Hayes in The Athletic wrote overnight, Twins face tough offseason decisions, but say it's business as usual despite sale of the team. So the summary is that Falvey will, and remember, there's no more Thad Levine. Thad Levine is leaving, so it's just Falvey. Good trade, Falvey. He'll operate under the same financial limitations the Twins always face. The club's budget is also unlikely to increase from this year's $127 to $130 million range, and that stipulation followed a $30 million payroll reduction from a record high figure in 2023. So they're not resetting the budget from before Bally Sports went all to heck.
Bally up.
It's good. You could be a writer. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
So they don't have much financial wiggle room with a bunch of key players due raises. So we've talked in previous episodes about some players who were not offered contracts, like Kyle Farmer and so forth. But there's also guys who are arbitration eligible, and that means raises. Arbitration projections include Willie Castro, $6.2 million, Ryan Jeffers, $4.7 million, Bailey Ober, $4.3 million, Joe Ryan, $3.8 million, Joan Duran, $3.7 million, Griffin Jacks, $2.6, Royce Lewis, $2.3. Boy, they grow up fast. Trevor Larnach, $2.1 million. Alex Kirilloff, hey, he saved him $1.8 million, I think. He was projected to make that, and he has announced his retirement or his stepping away from the game. Michael Tonkin, $1.5 million. Can you say non-tender? Justin Topa, $1.3 million. Brock Stewart, $0.8 million. Brock Stewart's been around forever, and he's still only projected to make $0.8 million. I don't know how that works, but so that's a total of $35 million for those players, and that's more than they made a year ago. So, Brandon, I don't know how this is going to work. How's this going to work?
They're going to have to get creative. I mean, that's why we're here in the first place, was to talk about who we think they're most likely to trade. And this is Dave's version, not Brandon's version, not Taylor's version. So we'll do your 5, but it's not, certainly not exciting to be doing the shrinkflation and to go backwards one year and then stay the same the next is in theory or in practice going backwards yet again. And, we saw what that meant. It meant going backwards in the standings as well. Now, I still think this team is built in a way where they could improve organically without adding anybody from the outside. But why would you expect that or want that? Why would that be the route that you would take when the division is certainly not beyond your reach whatsoever?
Well, we know the Guardians won, so I guess Twins fans must hope for a regression there. The Royals also made the playoffs. The Royals are talking about spending more money. They are not, they're still trying to get a new stadium, or for when Kauffman Stadium's.
And they brought back Michael Wacha already.
And they've brought back Michael Wacha. So walk alone. He'll never walk alone. He'll never be in need of a want of a 2-year contract because he's got one now with the Royals. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to walk away. Don't walk away, Michael. So, and then there's the Tigers, who might have the most upside of them all. They kind of surprised us by making the playoffs last year with a great second half. So if these teams are on the upswing or apparently on the upswing, I don't know where that leaves the Twins, but that it does. So we're talking about the 5 most likely Twins to be traded. So I tease them here in this. Where is it? There. It's over there. I'm on the wrong side, but just keep following my finger through, Brandon. On today's show, highly regarded prospect. That could be anybody. The Twins have a really good farm system, and they have a bunch of. Maybe not the best prospects in the league, but they have a highly regarded farm system and a bunch of guys in the top 100. If you look at Baseball America and other sources, they have some good names. They have lots of resources from which to deal. Now, when you're a team that is talking, the problem here with this is that when you're talking about a team that wants to save money, you can't really save more money than with players who aren't really getting paid yet. They had their bonuses, and that's already factored into the budget. But talking about getting younger and cheaper, the Twins are already young and cheap. So I don't know exactly how you move forward. I think there's a lot of dog paddling going on. So they do have prospects to trade. I believe one of them will go. They have a redundant outfielder. They have lots of guys who kind of are similar. And they had many more last year. If you look at people like Max Kepler, who's going to free agency, and Matt Wallner and Alex Kirilloff, who is retired, and Trevor Larnach, they still have lots of guys who are kind of like that. And some more people, also in the minor leagues who are coming up, who some of them hit from the left side, who might take some jobs in the major leagues next year. That could be a way to get cheaper and better, I suppose, if you look at it that way. But that means there's excess. There's fat to trim. So there's that. The person who is second on the team in doubles, I believe, is a candidate to be traded. And, you can go look that up yourself or take a guess. It might surprise you a little bit, but that's one of their recent prospects, in fact. And the person who's second on the team in ERA, minimum of 30 innings pitched. That would be a big name. Now we're starting to get into the bigger names. Somebody who is a fan favorite in some circles, and in other circles, he makes people very nervous. And then the piece de resistance, the franchise cornerstone, person who is one of the building blocks of the future and one of the great players of the present, is going to go. And I'm not going to name names until the end because we're teases. But you got to give something to get something. So we're nominating, or I am. Brandon has already sworn off these people. He's going to have his own 5. Fine, Brandon. And that's basically it. So we'll start with the highly regarded prospect. I think Luke Keeschel is a guy who is a good bet to be traded. And why him? He's maybe the number 3 prospect on the team if you count a couple guys who've graduated to the majors. It's not exactly how that works, but right. He's not Walker Jenkins. He's not Manuel Rodriguez. But I think he's, maybe he's not even as good as Festa or Zebi, but let's assume those guys are major league players now and not prospects anymore. I think Keyshal's next up. He's a guy who I'm not sure if he has a position. It's supposedly second base. Sometimes it's other positions. Sometimes it's outfield. They're kind of doing an Austin Martin thing a little bit with him, where you don't know where he is. He's over here, then he's over there. So I don't know. But a second baseman, a person like that with a pedigree like his, Arizona State, you could get a lot for Luke Keyshaw. They still, I think the Twins probably would rather trade like Edouard Julien. But what are you going to get for Edouard Julien when he kind of bottomed out last year?
Right.
That's a year too late on him. And they have other players. I mentioned Austin Martin. Willie Castro can play second base. Jorge Polanco's a free agent. He's available.
Hey.
So there are options for second base, and you could get a lot for Luke Keyshaw, something perhaps that you need. What's your opinion on that person, Luke Keyshaw, as a person likely to be traded?
Yeah, I think the players that are above him on the organizational depth chart can act as a cautionary tale. Edouard Julien was similarly valuable a year ago and didn't have a defensive home, still doesn't. Will probably be a bat first guy for his entire career, and I think Keyshaw could fit into that box as well. So it's tough. Yeah, you don't want to trade away these prospects because you have such grand expectations for them. But then you look back and you're like, wow, the Twins, what could they have gotten for Alex Kirilloff all those years ago? What could they have gotten for Trevor Larnach 3 years ago? So it's kind of hard to have your feet in both camps and be, unbiased in one way or another. But with Keyshaw, I think it just comes down to, I'm not sure there's a great fit for him on this roster. And I also think too, if his issues with health right now don't bump his value down too far, and I don't think they will, because it's not like he's got Carlos Correa's ankles or anything like that. I think the value is there for him to be moved for, they're obviously willing to move him for Eric Fetty. I think that would have been a move. Like if they want to make that move now, I think they still probably could, or at least that would interest them. Certainly it's not ideal that he only got 1 year of control left instead of a year plus a couple months. But yeah, I think Keyshaw is a good place to start when you look at the farm system. And Manuel Rodriguez, I think they want to keep him around for Buxton insurance, and Walker Jenkins is just like a transcendent prospect that I think, you're only trading him if you're getting back like, I don't know, a fully healthy Sandy Alcantara or something like that. So yeah, I think Keyshaw's a good spot, a good jump off point for prospects the Twins might look to move based on his bat looking a lot further ahead than his glove at this point.
Yeah, Walker Jenkins, another stratosphere as far as prospect goes, and I think even Rodriguez is a step above Keyshaw. So the returns on those guys would be, to me, much greater. But also, I think they have more value to the team based on the depth of the organization. So, all right, I've got 4 more guys to name. Let's take a break now. Let's do our first break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about this redundant outfielder. He might have even been mentioned recently by Brandon.
Well, fellas, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for any uncomfortable doctor visits. You just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. And if prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED solution that works best for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. Hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Welcome back to Locked On. There's more.
No, I just had to breathe.
Welcome back to Locked On Twins. Speaking of discreet packaging, we're talking about the 5 most Twins likely to be traded. Dave's version. In the first segment, we mentioned Luke Keeschel, who is perhaps the number 3 to 5 best prospect on the Twins, and the Twins are rated very well among all teams with prospects. So we're talking about a guy that Brandon mentioned last year that the Twins were on the verge. It's too bad it didn't work out, but for trading for Eric Fetty, he'd look good in a Twins uniform, even for just one season at this point. So Keeschel he's out of here. Who else is out of here? The redundant outfielder, maybe you know him, Trevor Larnach. Banking on Matt Wallner finishing a season, going 500 plate appearances, 600 plate appearances. You don't need another lefty. I don't like Larnach at first base. DH is okay. He's okay in left field. But I think that's a guy who is high on the team in home runs and extra base hits and slugging percentage and that kind of thing. It's a little, you don't have Kepler anymore. You don't have Alex Kirilloff apparently, who is retiring. So he's not as redundant as he used to be, but I think he's a guy that there's maybe a limited ceiling. I don't know how much more are we going to get out of Trevor Larnach than what he did last year? Is he a 550 slugger? Wallner, that guy can slug over 500. Larnach, I'm not so sure about. So I think it's not 100% ideal to move a guy like Larnach, but I think I would if I were Derek Falvey.
What do you think,
Brandon?
Well, what would your outfield look like in that instance on opening day then, assuming they're facing a righty?
Outfield. Of course, it depends on. I don't have a guy ready. I've got Austin Martin. I'm thinking about Austin Martin. I'm thinking about Wallner. I'm thinking about Byron Buxton. I'm thinking about Rodriguez in the outfield, perhaps.
Willie Castro in that mix too.
Castro. They have guys. They have guys that can play left field. They could bring in a guy. They could bring in a different guy, perhaps a right-handed hitter with some sock.
What about Harrison Bader to play left field or whatever? Very athletic, good backup plan in center field, is a right-handed hitter. I don't know. It's just a name I'm throwing out there. I would be yes on Harrison Bader, absolutely. For the reason Harrison Bader with Deshaun Kiersey could be a really interesting lefty.
Deshaun Kiersey. Speaking of redundant, Deshaun Kiersey, he's a switch hitter, I believe, but a guy who I believe hits better from the left side. That Deshaun Kiersey, I think, could play left field. So they got guys.
They got guys every offseason, like a Cole Calhoun or as you like to say, Seth Smith. There's always decent David Peralta type outfielders out there every year that are ready-made, 750 OPS, 18 to 20 homers. If you find the right guy, I'm trying to think of who else is out there, like Adam Duvall kind of guys, where it's they'll give you value. You don't have to block a prospect if you don't want to, but It's nice to have a guy who's been there for 1,500 or 2,000 big league plate appearances too.
So that's a guy. So first guy, Luke Keeschel. Second guy, Trevor Larnach. Second on another guy. Second on the team in doubles. Do you know who that is? Without looking,
I was gonna guess Willie Castro.
Willie Castro. I don't want to give it away too much, but he was on this list, but then I cut him. I kept him around. I don't think Rocco's going to want to trade Willie Castro.
He's not your franchise cornerstone, huh?
He's not. He's not. I'm sorry. And he's also not second on the team in ERA. So we have seen him pitch, but no. So Willie, not to give the store away, but no, Willie Castro is not one of those things. So Jose Miranda, he had a big power drain in the second half last year. I think kind of like Larnach, I wonder if there is a ceiling here, and we kind of reached it in the first half. Pretty good ceiling. But they have other guys for third base, and they have other potential guys for first base, be it Santana or somebody else, I'd love to see him bring in Paul Goldschmidt, but that's a fairy tale at this point, based on all the signs that we're getting. And a power hitting third baseman with, as it turns out, not terrible metrics over at third base. You could sell lots of other teams about a power hitting third baseman, and tell them a story about whatever that was that happened in the second half that made it impossible for Miranda to hit any more home runs after July. So that's a guy still. If you look at the stats, if you look on a superficial level, one of the better hitters in the lineup. I'm not sure if that's true. I say sell high before it gets Edouard Julien low.
Well, and it's hard because there are a lot of guys where you could convince yourself you are selling low on them, and Miranda's performance would be selling low, but you'd be selling high on his first half performance, the sense that he's still got years of control left. We're in an era right now where a lot of teams, I think, are going to be trying to go a little cheaper based on the uncertainty of broadcast contracts. There are enough selling points that the Twins could move some of these guys who may not have been great at the end of the season, but still have some potential left, or at least a ceiling to scrape yet at this point. Miranda kind of profiles as that kind of guy. And you don't have to squint too hard at Miranda to see a guy who could hit 25 homers and 35 doubles. So that's like a ready-made, very nice first division starter at third base. May not be an all-star, but safely underneath the next tier. And so, yeah, I think, and again, it'll all come back to what teams are offering. I mean, is there a decent number 3 starter with 2 years of control available? And is there something that matches up like that? And right now we don't know what the answer is to that. But assuming that there are some names out there, again, that Feltner cat from Colorado is kind of the one I fall back on, where it's like I see enough in that guy's profile that I think the Twins could turn him into the best version of himself. I could also see, even Austin Gomber just flipping someone over there to Colorado that I don't really think of them as all that smart. So I feel like you wouldn't.
You put one over on Dick Monfort, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to be rude, and I would hate if somebody talked about the Twins like this on a show, but I feel like you get the pitcher. You can take the pitcher out of Colorado, and you can take the Colorado out of the pitcher.
One more thing about Miranda. Slugged 323, on base 250, hit 226 against left-handed pitching. So that doesn't, I mean, he's a right-handed hitter, and I think the Twins could use maybe one more of those. But one of the reasons is he was very poor against left-handed pitching. He slugged, against righties, 313, 356, 500 slugging percentage. I think most of that was probably in the first half. But and I don't know if that's a one-off, a one-season thing, because I think that's a different, it's a higher reverse split than we're used to seeing from him. But that's, you could also sell it on, well, this guy against most pitchers is going to hit better, and is going to hit really well, and he's also probably going to hit better against lefties than he did last year. That was a fluke. I'm pretending to be Falvey. Can you tell? In the trade negotiation. So I think that's a good reason why maybe Miranda is a good guy to do. So, all right, before we go to our final break, the person who is second on the team in ERA, minimum 30 innings pitched, because if you lower to 20 innings, it's Scott Blewett. But this person is Joan Duran.
Hey!
I've got Joan Duran as one of the 5 likeliest Twins to be traded. I'm not 100% comfortable with this, because I still think that one of the Twins' strengths is the end of their bullpen. And I think Duran was extremely, again, I'm going into Falvey trade negotiation mode. He was so unlucky last year, or at least it seemed like he was. And at least for a stretch of the season, his worst stretch of the season was really unlucky. I mean, they were falling in all over the place, and they weren't necessarily hitting it hard against him. And, it was still a period that kind of cost the Twins a lot of traction in the pennant race. And you could say contributed to them not making the playoffs. All fair to say that. But I think Duran is a guy. The thing about Duran, like if the Twins were really cold-hearted, calculating, if they were more like the Rays, you know who would be gone? Griffin Jax would be so gone. Maybe you turn him into a starter, but the Twins don't really need that to happen. So he's I guess he's had some talk about wanting to be a starter, and with his pitch mix, we could do it. We could go down the Louis Varland road again, I guess. But the Twins don't really need that.
No.
But he would be so traded, and you get so much for Griffin Jacks. You're not going to get as much. The thing about Duran is he's only 26, 27. He's a couple years younger than
they both
Jacks.
be traded if the Twins were the Rays. Your closer would be like Josh Winder or Louis Varland.
That's true. It would be Louis Varland until they blew his arm out and then went on to I don't know. Probably Scott Blewett for a while. Scott Blewett be an all-star.
Yeah.
With the Twins. But Duran makes some sense to me to move. It makes me nervous a little bit, but he's sort of one of the reasons why because I think they can fine-tune Alcala to pitch in high leverage innings. I really do. There's another guy who'd be the Twins or the Rays closer, Jorge Alcala. Keep him away from the home runs, and you got yourself a stew there.
What if you traded Alcala to the Rays for Yandy Diaz?
Oh, yeah. They haven't burned him out yet, so the Rays might like that. The Rays are like, all right, we're going to keep this guy up, and he's going to throw 103. We're going to make him throw that hard, and then it's going to be over in 6 months. But we're going to squeeze another. Yeah, definitely so.
Well, with Duran, there might be like as much as I have enjoyed watching him pitch, there may be a time where you get out and he blows out. I mean, it just, and that to me, it also feels like he's going to be the one that brings back the most because he's where he's at in his club control, and teams will see how unlucky he was, and so they'll think, we can fix him, and that's usually the Twins' gambit. But it wouldn't shock me if you could get one of your big needs filled by trading Duran. Like I think you could get pretty nice starting pitcher, especially if you identify one you like that's in like their Simeon Woods Richardson era or like a step below that. Now, if you want to identify someone closer to like the Frankie Montas from 2 years ago, I don't know if that's really in the mix, but I think it's going to be a way for the Twins to bring in talent that they might have otherwise not been able to pay in free agency. So it might seem like a weird swap to get, like they got Chris Paddock for Taylor Rogers. Why couldn't they take a similar swing now a few years later?
Well, I would hope that they would get a guy who could make 30 starts if they're going to do something like that. If they need to have a little better luck with the kind of trade. But yeah, that's sort of what we're doing here on this episode. The 5 Twins most likely to be traded, and we've done 4 of them. Luke Keeschall, you're out of here. Trevor Larnach, there's too many of you. Jose Miranda, go hit some lefties on someone else's team. Joan Duran.
We'll see you later.
We'll see you later. Exactly. There's one more name, and we're going to get to it after our final break. Right? Yes.
Yep. And it's FanDuel. FanDuel wants you to know that you can tackle the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook. That's right. We're talking about FanDuel and that lovely FanDuel app, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets if you hit on your first $5 bet. Bet against those Bears. I hear they're not playing very good right now. Is that true, Dave?
It's gone to hell so fast. Can I say hell?
You did twice already, so it cancels out if you can't. So you're good.
Hella bad for the Bears right now. Hella bad.
They're in hell, and they're in the handbasket, reaching hell soon. But the FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you want to dog those Bears, that's the place to go. But when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, and you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. It's like a little tiny version of Red Zone. But it's the FanDuel app, FanDuel.com. Got to join today, though. You'll get, again, started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Yeah, check out the Sparts book there, Dave.
The what?
Sparts. I said sportsbook partner is one word, and I was like, Sparts book.
That's almost like a Kansas City accent. Because Harry Truman, when he talked, he'd say Sparts. He'd say things like that. That's how they talk down here in Missouri.
Missouri.
I was just looking on Twitter related to what we're talking about. 5 Twins most likely to be traded. There are a few teams expressing interest in Camilo Duval, I'm told. This is Susan Slusser. right, longtime San Francisco scribe. The talent remains undeniable, and a few teams would consider him for a closer role, which he lost to Ryan Walker last year. If Camilo Doval is attracting the attention of teams, imagine what kind of attention Joan Duran would attract. So
it's such a Falvey move too. You have to be careful not to say Falvey and Levine. They've been inextricably connected,
right?
To where you kind of, I mean, Mike Berardino gave them their moniker, Falvine. I refused to say it at the time, and I still won't because I don't need to. But yeah, this has the hallmarks of a Derek Falvey trade, to where, if they, I think we all think they might like to trade Christian Vasquez for financial purposes or whoever else, but moving Duran feels like the most Falvey move possible. Like, this is a great trade Falvey starter kit.
If they move Vasquez, though, they got to make sure Borg Schlutt fixes Ryan Jeffers, and whoever the catching coach is also needs to fix that side of Ryan Jeffers. Ryan Jeffers has two sides to fix before they can move Vasquez.
They very clearly don't trust any other catchers in the organization right now when they don't let Jair Camargo do any catching.
Camargo was short on statistics last year at AAA, so he didn't. It's not like he hit so well. They're like, oh, we got to bring this guy up.
Right.
They brought him up for like 48 hours.
They had a couple interesting catcher types, because I think Chris Williams is still down there too. But it just, the fact that they've had the same exact guys catching every single game, with the exception of like one inning over the last 2 years, I don't know how telling it is, because it's a good problem to have if you've got two guys that consistent and that healthy and that good on one side or the other of the game. But it also is kind of like, well, then would they really trade Vasquez if they don't really trust anybody else?
Yeah, they would have to be, again, active in it's not a huge market in catching free agents, but there are guys available if you wanted to go out and get Travis d'Arnaud or somebody like that, maybe someone better.
Danny Jansen.
Danny Jansen had we should do a show about Danny Jansen. He had a terrible year.
Yeah.
I don't understand. He broke a bone in his wrist in spring training, and if I were Derek Falvey and trading Danny Jansen, I would say, concentrate on that. He had a broken bone. He wasn't himself. I don't know if that was it, because he was, for a guy on the verge of free agency, I don't know if he was putting too much pressure on himself. I don't know. But Chris Sabo-looking dude did not have a good year. And few catchers have hit more. We're already doing a Danny Jansen show. Have hit more homers or for more power in the last 3 years than that guy coming into this past season. And he just, maybe it was the broken bone in his wrist. I don't know if that is actually factual or not, but
he's also in the past caught with a running mate, because Alejandro Kirk was. So I mean, he's not unaccustomed to sharing time either.
No, he's never been. He's always been a
So is d'Arnaud, right? I mean, d'Arnaud's kind of been that
mostly.
Guy.
Yes, yeah. They've always had, and it seems like they've had, whether it's Murphy or somebody else. Tyler Flowers, exactly. So they've always had complementary. Complementary, not I complementary.
Yeah.
So we've talked about four guys who the Twins are likely to trade. I don't even know if it really is likely, but these are just they seem likely to me. We've talked about highly regarded prospect Luke Keyshaw, redundant outfielder Trevor Larnach, second on the team in doubles Jose Miranda, second on the team in ERA minimum 30 innings pitched Joan Duran, and the franchise cornerstone. So it's not Buxton, it's not Correa. There's one more franchise cornerstone, and that would be Royce Lewis. It makes me really uncomfortable to do it, but if you could get Royce Lewis value back in somebody other than Royce Lewis, I might just do that. It was a very weird year. He started out like gangbusters. He immediately got hurt, and almost literally immediately, like right after he was his second at bat of the season. And then he was still hitting well, but then something happened in like June, and he was not the same after that. And he was just, it was kind of like a different person. What?
Like he saw a ghost or something.
Yes, maybe. He was just, and it killed him. If Royce Lewis has 3/4 of the season that we thought that he would, they probably make the playoffs. You can see, we've said that about a bunch of different guys.
But I mean, you can say that about Buxton, Correa, and Lewis in some form or fashion, either being out or if Lewis felt the pressure to play because those guys were out and he was also hurt and doesn't want that stank on his reputation of can't play hurt. I mean, all of that is that's a complicated ledger to have on your balance sheet.
I don't like to. There are certain things that we don't really know that much about because we're not either reporters every day, and even those guys don't necessarily know about things like attitude adjustments. There is some talk. There's some quotes that Royce had during the season talking about where the blame goes for the Twins falling apart, and he did not necessarily represent himself 100% in the best way. Is there an attitude issue that we're kind of worried about with Royce Lewis, where he's hey, it's not me, it's somebody else? Is he one of those kind of guys? I can't. He's just been so positive that was like 180 degrees. We went from Royce Lewis is the most positive guy ever to, is this guy like secretly not positive? What is your take on it?
I want to give him the benefit of the doubt with how frustrating the end of the season was. And he did shoulder a lot of that load. I think Buxton and Correa not being there meant that the burden fell on somebody. And certainly Carlos Santana being there helped. But there was a lot placed on Royce, whether we realized it or not at the time, where I'm sure he felt that way. And I think those comments were more of frustration of the culmination of one of the biggest collapses in Twins history, if not recent history by a lot of teams. And so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he's a good dude, good kid. He's younger than me, so I can call him a kid. But I think at the same time too, like, I don't think they're not convinced if somebody comes across with an offer for a really good pitcher that it wouldn't make sense to pull the trigger. Let someone else take the risk this time on a guy with this injury history. You signed Buxton to his deal and it's been mixed reviews, but certainly a fair contract for what he brings to the table. Do you really want to take that squeeze again with another type of produce and see what happens? Or do you spread that risk out with, excuse me, a starting pitcher of a similar caliber, since, is that starting pitcher any more likely to get hurt than Lewis? I don't know. There's a lot of questions I have to have answered that will never be answered from my standpoint. But with that said, yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea of moving him. I don't like him particularly at third base. So I don't know. I mean, it could change quickly. Guys become great defensive third basemen via sheer work ethic. Corey Koski did it. But with that said, if someone comes in with an offer I can't refuse pitching wise for Royce Lewis, I'd think long and hard about it.
So those are our 5 guys. I don't know. Do you think any of them actually will be traded? Are we just is this a to-do exercise?
If I was to pick somebody, Joan Duran would be at the top of that list.
Right.
I would
say Duran, and I think they're going to trade Larnach too.
But if you trade Duran, I mean, the fact that the closer marketplace, David Robertson's out there again and is going to be fairly well compensated. If you look at that and then you look at like, hey, I can get Duran for a few years of control. I mean, maybe you get a good young right-handed outfielder, or you get a good young guy who you think can stay at third base, which frees up someone to move to second, whether it's Lewis, Lee, whoever. That's what makes these things so difficult to project, is that once the wheels start turning, you never know quite where they're going to stop. Do they trade for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and keep him, or do they trade him again? That's why these shows are fun to do, but not particularly instructive or necessarily
predictive.
It's like a mock draft. How accurate can you be? But it's still fun to do the exercise.
I also don't know that there's a lot to do, but as far as almost like resetting the roster, I don't. With ownership being who knows who's that's going to be in the future, I don't know if Falvey is going to be interested in wasting his time for that if he's not Is he going to be around for that? I mean, he can't say with 100% certainty
Right.
that he is. So I don't know that. I think
Guess it
the
depends
Twins
on
still should be in the interest in the. They should still be interested in winning as soon as they can.
depends on how long his new contract is too, because we have to be under the assumption he signed a new contract, right?
Yes. When was it up?
I thought it was up at the end of the year, and then when they said he was back, because I thought he and Levine were on matching
At the
deals,
same time.
and then when they said that Falvey would come back, Levine would not. That to me suggests he got a deal, or that there's something going on there where he's
Some kind of
got.
agreement.
Well, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4 years, who knows? I would guess it's probably 2. One to protect you on the back end for a guy not wanting to be a lame duck. But I don't know. That also would play into it.
So that's going to do it for this episode. 5 Twins most likely to be traded. Dave's version. Maybe we'll see Brandon's version soon. Maybe we'll see a real trade, and we'll get talking about that. It is the hot stove off-season time, so
Stove, it is so hot.
it is. So for Brandon, this is Dave saying, wishing all a very pleasant good evening, and I hope you listen to Paul Sullivan, but we're not advertising that necessarily.
Locked on MLB, check out Sully. Yeah, Paul Sullivan, we love him.
All right, so for Brandon, this is Dave saying that we will see ya
Tomorrow
night.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow
Tomorrow
night.